invited speakers, distinguished guests, welcome back to Sanfar 20. Now, we are going to welcome Associate Professor Paul Chui He and Associate Professor Doni Kurniawan to lead the keynote session 2. And now I'm going to read the curriculum vitae of Mr. He. Paul Chui He, PhD, is a postdoc research fellow at University of New South Wales, Australia. He's also a professor and PhD supervisor at Chongqing University, China. He got his Doctor of Philosophy, PhD in Architecture or Built Environment, University of New South Wales, Australia. His research interests are urban environmental science, microclimate, urban ventilation, urban climate change mitigation and adaptation, sustainable urban environmental planning and design, and environmental policy, and also net zero carbon built environment, green building, and architectural science. Some of his honoring grants are Associate Editor of Frontier in Built Environment, Leading Guest Editor of Creation of Cool Cities and Society in Sustainable Cities and Society, Leading Guest Editor of Climate Change and Sustainable Urban Environmental Planning in Sustainability, Conference Stational Chair, Performance Best Planning Session at 11th International Conference on Innovation in Urban and Regional Planning, or INPUT, Italy, and Single Year 100,000 Scientists Around the World at Mendeley 2020.
Now I will read the curriculum vitae of Mr. Doni Kurniawan. Dr. M. Doni Kurniawan is an associate professor at Institut Teknologi Bandung, Indonesia. He got his Bachelor of Architecture at Gadjah Mada University, and then he got Master of Architecture at Institut Teknologi Bandung, and then he got his Doctor of Engineering or Dr. Eng in Architecture, Faculty of Environmental Engineering for Outdoor Thermal Comfort at Hot Humid Area at the University of Kitakyushu, Japan. His research interests are outdoor thermal comfort and building and city performance simulation. Among his selected honor and grants are NSF or National Science Foundation USA, UC Boulder, Virginia Tech, UGM ITB, Makassar City, Modernizing Cities via Smart Urban Farming with Application of Artificial Intelligence and Machine Learning in Makassar City 2020. And Shimizu Corp Japan, Thermal Comfort Performance for Workers in Bandung, Series 2 2020. And SAT REP, Hiroshima University, Shinsu University, ITB, Puslitbangkim, Unhas UGM, Toward Low Carbon Design Apartment, ITB, Hiroshima University, GICA, GST 2020. And APEC, Energy Working Group, Implementation of Low Carbon Model Town through Green Building Infrastructure and Management Platform. To Mr. Bojihe and Mr. Doni Kurniawan, the time is yours.
Okay, thank you very much, MC. So we are going to start this plenary sessions. Are you Bojihe? Do you hear me? So
yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Yeah. And Professor Mazarakis, are you already here?
I'm ready. I'm here. Good morning.
Okay. Good morning. Okay, we are going to start this plenary sessions. Ladies and gentlemen, before we start the presentations, and in order to avoid any disturbance during the presentation letters, I would like to ask you to change the mode of your gadget into silence and mute mode. Thank you very much. Before we begin this session, it is a pleasure that I will be accompanied by Associate Professor Bojihe, my fellowship friends from UNSW. Welcome, Bojihe. Thank you very much for your time. And I know that it is going to be met in your times. Please give a big applause to him. And the honorable speakers, distinguished guests, fellow students, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this prestigious Senpar 20 about urban retrofitting building cities and communities in the disruptive era, held by Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. In these occasions, we shall have outstanding presentations from our prominent presenter, whom I believe shall enrich our insights and knowledge regarding themes of seminar. Just remind you all, ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question, please write in Zoom chat box or YouTube comment box. Please mention your name and state to which presenter you address your question. Yeah, before the presentation begins, allow me to introduce the presenters. Now, our presenters is Professor Mazarakis, that I believe he already joined with us, and he is a professor. And now, will you please the committee to yeah, okay. Professor Mazarakis, he is a professor and now he is the head of research center human biometeorology of the German Meteorological Service located in Freiburg, Germany. His bachelor's graduate from meteorology Ludwig Maximilian University Munich, and his doctor graduated from Aristoteles University in Thessaloniki. Yeah. Between 1995 and 2001, he was a research assistant at the Meteorological Institute of University of Freiburg, and he wrote his habilitations on the thermal components on the urban climates. Between October 2001 and July 2015, he was senior research associate at the University of Freiburg, and where he was appointed adjunct professor in October 2009. Since August 2015, he is head of the Research Center Human Biometeorology of the German Meteorological Service. And between 1996 and 2014, he chairs the Commissions of Climate, Tourism, and Recreations, the International Society of Biometeorology. And he was vice president of the International Society of Biometeorology between 2006 and 2009. In 2016, he is the chairman of the German Society for the Advancement of Medical Meteorological Research. And his core research interests are in human bioclimatology and urban climatology, climatology of tourism and climate change impact research. And a further research focus is the development of models and tools for applied climatology and biometeorology. It's like a Rayman software models and Sky Helios models, climate mapping tools, and CTIS, Climate Tourism Information System. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Professor Mazarakis. He will deliver presentations entitled Urban Bioclimates and Quality of Life, Short and Long-Term Adaptations Possibilities. Professor Mazarakis, for your information, your time is 30 minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Professor Mazarakis. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Donny. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I will try to start my presentation. Okay, can you see my screen? It's the first transparent presentation. Okay. Yes. Okay. Thank you very much. Again, good morning or good afternoon for you. Good afternoon for me. Good morning. It's 7 o'clock in the morning for me. I'm sitting here in my office, and I will try in the next 30 minutes to give you some information, to give you some possibilities to see what is happening in this context about climate protection, climate adaptation, and what possibilities we have in order to adapt to this recent conditions, but also to the new conditions that we expect from climate. So, as Donny mentioned, I'm responsible here I'm heading here the Research Center Human Biometeorology. That means we don't analyze only in the context of climate, but we have a specific focus, and this focus is the humans. That means we try to quantify, we want to know what possibilities we have to adapt in the context of climate change, especially for humans, but also especially for people who are living in cities. Therefore, I have structured my presentation in three parts. First of all, I will talk about the general context about bioclimate and what happens in the urban areas. Then I present shortly the methods and the models that we have in order to provide, calculate, get information and data. And then I would like to present you 3-4 examples, what possibilities we have, very popular examples, which everyone can understand, everyone maybe knows or is related to them, has a personal relationship, like open spaces behavior, or maybe the FIFA World Cup or the Olympic Games and so on. As far as we know, is that most of the people live in urban areas. More than 60% at the moment live in urban areas. But we know also that 75% of the emissions of the humans take place in urban areas. But we know also that only 2 to 3% of the surface of the earth is cities. But we know also, and this is a general fact which is well known, is that usually when we compare a city with a surrounding, that means outside of the city, the differences in temperature, this is the reason because we talk about urban climate, the differences are between 2 to 3 in the annual context. That means in general, all over the year, the difference, the city is warmer about 2 to 3 centigrade. When we look behind that, and you see here, I described this with from the Greek alphabet, the delta, that means the difference. If we look what we expect to the end of the century in the general context or in the worldwide context, we see that, and we expect to the end of the century, the temperature worldwide will increase about more than 3 centigrade. We see that exactly in the cities we experience climate change now. That means we have the situation that cities which are warmer than the surrounding people experience how will be the climate in the end of the century. But this means also that in the future, in urban areas, we will have 2 times exposure of people, 1 time that we have at the moment because of urban climate, but in the future also because of climate change. That means they will double exposed to the negative conditions. So we know a lot about climate. We know not a lot about climate change. We know that this is a challenge, climate change for the 21st century. And as I mentioned, we know that urban climate has a specific condition, specific climate, and so on. We know that more people live there, and so on. But we know that all this this combination between urban climate and climate change can affect humans. This is the reason because we have as a target the humans. And we know a lot that in the future heat will change. That means we will be more exposed in heat. And concerning climate change, we know very, very good about the conditions for the future about heat. And therefore, we focus mostly on heat. And I think a very popular example, which everyone knows of us, is the heat waves. We know that the heat waves will increase, heat waves will be more intense, heat waves will last longer, and so. Therefore, we need some possibilities how to quantify heat for humans. That means what is the effect of heat on humans and in general on human health. And therefore, we know a lot, as I mentioned, but we know also that not only one component is affecting humans concerning heat. It is not only temperature. We know that it's also humidity, it's also wind, but also radiation. And we know that all this information and all these factors affect in a similar way the human body. And we have the possibility to quantify that. For this, we use the human energy balance. That means the exchange of the humans between the surrounding in the context of heat and energy. And we have the meteorological factors like temperature, humidity, wind speed, and radiation. We try to solve an equation, which is the equation of exchange of heat of the human body, and transfer this information in equivalent temperature. That is a real field temperature. When you are exposed in the sun, you feel more hotter, that is more hotter than it's in reality is temperature. And this is exactly what we are doing. We are using mostly the thermal indices, which is an equivalent temperature. We can describe much better all these conditions. Today, I will refer only on one thermal index, which is the physiological equivalent temperature. We have also some other, about 4 to 5 good indices about that, and I would like to try to focus on that. Based on the equivalent temperature, we have, or we can quantify the effect on the human body, and we have different classes. And we know in which class we are more close to thermal neutrality or comfort, or when we are exposed to heat stress. But there are differences between region to region and between people or different origin of peoples. And this we can consider, especially for Europe, we know between 80 and 23. This is thermal comfort. I know that from Indonesia, this is not thermal comfort. This may be maybe more cool and so, or cold, but there are existing many information about how to run that. We don't have the possibility to have all the data measured, and therefore we use, in order to quantify or in order to calculate all this required information, different models. That means is software, is mathematical models which can apply on the computer, make simulations and calculations. And therefore we have several models. We see here 4 examples. 2 of these models, Donny mentioned that is developed by my group here in Freiburg, and we can use that. This transparency I will show very often today. We focus on heat, as I mentioned before, and we have, concerning climate change, of course, 2 possibilities to act and react. The one is the mitigation, but there where people live, or when we have the exactly effect where we want to quantify for the humans, it's not mitigation, because mitigation means to reduce climate change causes and so on. We use mostly adaptation, and the adaptation means how people can adapt in the area where they live, in the area where they behave, how can survive there, how can have a good quality of life. This is the reason, because in my title of my presentation is the term quality of life. Oh, good, that was the methods. And now I would like to go on to the applications and examples that I have. I have 4 examples for you. The one is popular events, as I mentioned before. It's the World Soccer Ship 2022, which will take place in Doha in Qatar. Also the Olympic Games planned this year, but has been transferred because of the pandemic for next year. And then I have a specific example about popular places, reconstruction of places where environmental pressure, that means the pressure of the humans, can lead to some modifications, positive effects, and so on. And then I would like to focus a little on trees, because trees, we talk about adaptation possibilities. Most of the people talk about green and blue. I will focus here only on green and so on. And then I would like to present also some examples of what happens with the long-term and short-term actions that we can run, or the adaptation possibilities. The one is the warning systems, early warning systems, and the other one is long-term possibilities that we have. In reality, of course, the 3 first examples are long-term adaptation possibilities. So let's start with a popular event. And when we take popular events, we have 3 specific groups who are affected. First one is the people who are running, the athletes, as example, the people who are supporting the athletes or the games, the organization, and finally the spectators. And here, in order to have a huge effect, we take popular events, as I mentioned, that is Tokyo 2020, but also the FIFA World Cup 2022. because FIFA decided several years ago, I think it was 2004, 2002, they decided to have the games 10 years later in Qatar, where it's of course very, very hot. I have been there and experienced that. Good. And therefore, the decision has was taken for Qatar or for Doha. We see the advertisement of the government there. We will build a new stadium. There will be no problem. Anything will be run wonderful and so on. And we asked the organizers what will be happen there, because we know that it's very hot there. They said anything can be ventilated. We will have for the transfer and transportation, anything will be cool. And then we asked, what about adaptation of the humans? Because the people will be not local people or people from there, but many people will come from outside in order to watch or follow the games there. And they said, it's not a problem because we got the permission and so on, and anything will run well. And then we made an analysis with one of my staff. It was Dominic Fröhlich, and we analyzed these conditions not based on the data that the FIFA used, but we analyzed the data concerning the information that we had, and then we find something out, published this in a paper, and this paper took his way or went. It's been presented in the media, that was in LA Times or in Washington Post from the US. And the headline of the paper was at that time, we didn't make the headline, the journalists made this headline, was scientific proof that the Summer World Cup in Doha is too hot for fans. Because we don't focus on the athletes or the football game players, but we focus on the human who will be there. That was 2014, and we made the following. We analyzed the conditions for a long time, look behind what is in the context of temperature, what is second, you see on the left side, temperature, on the right side. Is that what I mentioned before? Is the real field temperature is a thermal index, an equivalent temperature, which is called physiological equivalent temperature. We define this as PET. And we see that there are some slight differences because during summer, temperature can be higher than 40, PET can be higher than 50, and we see that in the time when the game was planned, it was July and August, and June, July, we see that the conditions is not so appropriate. Then we analyze not all the year, but we analyze for all the year, all the hours of the day, in order to find which is the best time of the day in order that the games can be run and so on, and we find out exactly for the time when they want to run the games who is not the most appropriate. So we publish that, we get in contact, or the organizers get in contact with us, and there was a controversy, something like that, in the International Association in Urban Climatology in their news bulletin, and they wasn't outside. They asked also the organizers. The counterpoint was, we can cool everything and so on. And the question was, what can be done? And our suggestion was transfer the games to the winter. The contra from them was, we can cool everything. FIFA, 6 months after our paper, has been transferred the games to the winter, and we had, of course, different reactions and perceptions. We had positive reactions, especially from the scientific society, saying that was a good idea. After the games, 2009 was the first event, open air, that means not only in the stadium in Doha, that was the World Athletics, and most information that was last year, information in the media was that we had some problems with the athletes and so on. Information in the media was everyone is loser in the World Athletic Championship in Qatar. I was there. I came back to Europe with a cold that was 30, 40 centigrade. And the question was there because we worked together. We had a meeting there with the World Athletics, how will be in Tokyo. And then we analyzed the conditions for Tokyo, for the Olympic Games and the Paralympic Games, as I mentioned before, for 2020. You see here the possibility or the way how the organizations like International Olympic Committee or World Athletics decide about that. They take simple traditional diagrams. We didn't have done that. We make the comparison, the frequency, as we have run also for Doha. And then we suggested the IOC that especially the games will be run outside, like the marathon and some other games, to transfer to another city. And then we make this analysis. And finally, the games, I mean, the 50-kilometer walking and the marathon will take place in Sapporo. The games are transferred now for next year and so on. This is a very good example, especially when we take these popular events and we take athletic events where people are affected, that we can move something. And this is really a wonderful example that we have. Let's proceed to the next example, which is the transformation of spaces. In Freiburg, we had a wonderful space that was in the front of one of the college of the university. There was a green area. All the people in Freiburg, where I live, they know this area. They love this area in the past and so on. And there was a suggestion from the architects and from the municipality, in order to modify this space, cut all the trees, or most all the trees, and to have sandstone, to have a multifunctional place there, to have sandstone plates there. And the suggestion from the people don't like that. Also the environmental organization, the NGOs and ordinary people don't like that. And also the media suggested to have something which is more green, to keep the still existing trees there and so on. After long discussion, the space has been transformed. There is very popular now. People go there, spend their time there in summer. When the space was opened, and in summer is of course very hot there. And I would like to show you what happened. That was the original one. That was the winner of the competition of the architects and so on. And then we made an analysis in that, and we find out that removing one tree, that was only a small tree, will increase the amount of hours with strong and extreme heat stress in this place from 204 hours to 330 hours. That is about 125 hours, which is not 5 days, which is 3 times more or 4 times more. That means removing only one tree, you increase only because of modifying radiation, exposing the people more to the sun, you increase heat stress. There was a wonderful result which has been transferred to the planning. And as I mentioned, the space is open, is very popular there. And I passed 2 days before there. It was really fantastic to see in temperature conditions about 10 to 12 centigrade in the sun. People are standing there enjoying this area. And that kind of spaces or open areas, of course, have to be need a maintenance and so on, and therefore it has to be cleaned. The sandstones are very sensitive in order to see. In order to summarize this wonderful example, which is a very popular example in Germany, most of the people know in Germany, especially planners and architects know about the history of this place. I would like to summarize and to say environmental pressure makes sense, because we had all the discussion between 2009 and 2015 for 5 to 6 years, mostly once per week in the media and so on. In reality, we expected something different, that people will not accept this place, but people accept this place, and people adjust and modify their opinion and so on. And finally, I can mention only that both sides are happy and so on, and the story goes on. We have been asked, or people asking us, what's next? And we say, okay, we look about artificial shading, we look about other possibilities, maybe to modify the sandstones, to have more possibilities for water there, for shade, and so on. That means the story goes on. That means if you fix a place or you modify a place, the story is not over. You have really many possibilities in order to do that. I would like to continue, time is passing, and I would like to focus on trees. As far as we know, trees have many positive effects, but we have also negative effects because of trees. And if you look on this transparency, which is taken from California, there was a group in, if I remember, in California, I don't remember the city anymore where the study has been done. We see here that usually trees are a carbon sink, have a greater privacy. they increase property value, aesthetics, they're wonderful, we enjoy the green and so on in order to have some recreation there. But there is also a specific part with the shade. I would like to show you what it means in the context of the effect on human body, shade. And we had 2003 a very strong heat wave in Europe where more than 60,000 people died because of the heat. And at that time, we make an analysis for specific areas. We want to know, we had the question, what is the effect of forests on human health during heat, or on thermal comfort, or on heat stress? And we analyzed that, and we have been in the happy situation that in Bavaria, that is close to Munich, Munich is the capital of Bavaria in Germany. They have forest climate stations. They have stations in the forest, and they have stations outside of the forest. And we took this data and make some analysis. And you see here the distribution of temperature. The one is outside the forest, which is on the left side. On the right side is inside the forest. And we see that during the first 2 weeks in August, where the strong heat wave took place, we see that the differences in temperature is not so high, especially during the day, but during the night it's a little more. The difference is about 2 to 3 centigrade in temperature, but when we look on the physiological equivalent temperature, we see that outside the forest during the day, the effect or this quantification for humans temperature or physiological equivalent temperature is about more than 10 centigrade higher than temperature. This is the opposite during the night. During the night, outside is cooler, in the forest is warmer. That means in reality, we can change with our behavior many things. That was also a wonderful example that we sent after 2003 to the government. That was the basis in order to decide, okay, let's increase possibility of shade, let's increase the possibilities that we have during heat waves, maybe for people in recreating or to urban forests which are close to the city in order to be there. Okay, let's move to the last example that I have with me, which is the heat health action plans that we have. It's a movement that we have. But we know a lot about the short-term possibilities, which is, as I mentioned before, during 2003, we had an increase of mortality during heat waves. And we know what are the factors or the main risk factors that we have for mortality during because of heat, which is age, health status, and social factors. But we know also that we have climate change. As I talked in the beginning, we will have an increase of temperature, especially in urban areas, which is we double like rural, and so on. And we have also demographic change, and we know that having an early warning system, this can protect lives. We see that every year. We are responsible here in Freiburg for the heat health warning system in Germany. And then we have the heat health action plans. That means the international organizations, starting from WHO, World Health Organization, World Meteorological Organization, UNEP, and other organizations, started to prepare plans what to do, what to react, or how to react. And we have several success factors for these heat health action plans. And these heat health action plans are very, very popular at the moment in areas which are vulnerable to heat. And they have two specific factors which are interesting for us. The one is a precise heat health warning system, which is factor number 2, with regional defined thresholds. And number 7 is exactly the thing that we need is urban planning and construction industry. How can we apply that? How we can modify that? So I'm working here in Freiburg for the success factor number 2 and number 7. And I would like to show you another example for the acute situation, that means for the short-term situation. We have all the information that we require for the protection or for the development of short-term adaptation possibilities from the weather forecast. We have temperature, humidity, wind, we have radiation. We quantify this in the context of the human body. We take something like PET, an equivalent temperature. Here it's called perceived temperature. We know that people have a memory of the last about 30 days, how the heat was. We know also that a heat wave it takes early in the year has more effect than others, or when the heat place takes in late summer or in main summer, and we calculate the load categories, and we know also that most of the people during the night are exposed in indoors. In Germany and in Northern Europe or Central Europe, air conditioning is not very popular. It's only used maybe in public buildings and so on. We get this information, getting from the weather forecast the warning proposal. We modify that here in Freiburg. We look what happens, check other additional information, and then we can release the warning for based on the administration level that we have here, which is the counties, and then we transfer all the information to the ministries, to the elderly homes, to nursing homes, to the public, and all the groups that are affected. We include also in this information for elderly people, but we have also in this context also information about the cities of the big cities, about the urban heat island effect, how much cities are warmer, and we include this also in the information.
Professor Mazarakis,
yes.
Your time is 5 minutes left.
Okay, I will not be longer. Thank you very much, Tony. For these short actions, the heat health warning system, which is developed 2005, is since then in operation. We combine the day situation with the building simulation for the night conditions, and we have different levels of warnings. We have 2 levels of warnings, level 1 for strong and level 2 for extreme heat. And these levels, all this information when we release the warning, is based on thresholds on mortality. That means we have the combination between meteorology and mortality data. The conditions that we release the data is on county level, every elevation, every 200 meters, and of course we deliver the information of duration. We include also the elderly people, because the extreme heat stress for elderly people occurs earlier than for normal people. And then, of course, have the cities. That means, in order to continue, and I don't want to be very long in my, or to be longer as expected, we need these actions, and the actions are on the short term. We have this wonderful example of the heat health warning system, and also the long-term adaptation possibilities, like the one reconstruction of the space that I show you in Freiburg, but also for the popular games like FIFA or the Olympic Games, where we can see how scientific results can deliver not only good information, but can really be the basis in order to decide. This is the one point, having adaptation possibilities and adaptation strategies on the short term and long term, but in order to have them, you need a qualitative and a quantitative approach. That means you need number. You need to know many things about that. But this is not all. My biggest job that I'm doing in the last years is the communication. That means all this information has to be communicated. And we have to consider here different communication paths. Let me introduce the way how we deliver the information about the heat health. That means about the heat warnings that we release, or the warnings. In general, we provide this information for different people, people who, or send the people to different groups. The one is ministries, the other one is doctors and pharmacies. The one is the care and the nursing. This can be inpatient care, but also outpatient care. It's the emergency services, Red Cross or Red Half Moon, which has to be in a short term, but also in long term. We consider also the risk groups. That means the elderly people, sick people, or the children, because children adaptation is not full developed when they are young. And then we set very strong focus on the neighborly help. This also in the short term, but also in the long term. Or long term means education for people who are working, for the neighbors and so on. And finally, the organizations also and other officials that we have. Another possibility is for the long term actions. We need a common language. And I have here an example from Freiburg. And you see here the tram, the railway, the city railway, and this transparency is taken for someone from the urban planning department in Freiburg, which the lady showed us at that time what is her vision about climate, about the climate of the future, what has to be done, what has to be modified in cities. And as we see here, she was talking exactly about the same things, but a different nomenclature, but means with different terms. We talk about radiation, she talk about shade. We talk about wind, and she talk about ventilation. We talk about cold air flow, she talk about cold air production. They talk in a different way. That means they have to find a common language. And this is, I think, very, very important. Dear Donny, I saved 2 minutes. Thank you very much, and I'm happy to answer your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Mazarakis, for your informative and interesting talking. So there is some points that we can discuss on the sessions and the sessions. I already got the new view of urban heat island and adaptations. Another important things that we should mention in developing softwares. And another interesting things is how actually Professor Mazarakis implemented all the theories, use software in some places. And just remind you all once again, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions, please write in the Zoom chat box and please mention your name. And for the first chance of the discussion sessions in these sessions, I will give to Pochie. Pochie, you can ask Professor Mazarakis verbally. That's okay.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Andreas, for your presentation. It's very interesting and attractive. And I'm Pochie from the University of New South Wales. Nice to meet you this first time. And as you mentioned in the presentation, there is the assessment of the outdoor thermal comfort for the FIFA in Doha and the Olympic Games in Tokyo. My question is about how to consider the tourists' actual thermal comfort, like the visitors and players from the part of other countries to visit Doha and visit Japan, and from a middle zone or in the cool season to extreme hot or summer season, and there might be some seasonal or the geographical impacts on the thermal comfort of the visitors. So how do you think of this question? Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you, Pochie, for the question. It's nice to see you first time on video. It's a good question. As you realized, I don't talk about tourists. When we talk about these games, I talk about visitors. Yeah, and as you mentioned, it's exactly right. We have the people who will be in Doha or will be in Tokyo. They are not adapted to these conditions. And the question that the problem that we had, or the challenge that we had for this issue was that which scale to take? Shall we take the local scale or shall we take the original scale where the people are coming from? And finally, we decided to apply both scales. We know that the adaptation in new conditions for people, especially, and we know this from the athletes need about 2 weeks. They go 2 weeks before there in order to adapt. For ordinary people, it's difficult. I would say, and this is something at the moment what I'm thinking loud. Maybe it's better to take the original scale from at home and then put something like adaptation for the next 1 week is maybe one scale more or one class more, and maybe later after 2 or 3 weeks to reduce that. This is the only thing that we can do, because as you know, in order to quantify thermal comfort or to quantify the effect of the atmospheric environment in humans, we have about 70 factors. So we cannot include and consider all this information. So we take the most relevant, which is temperature, which is applying medication, which is behavior modification, but it's also a modification by the brain that is run, drink more water. That means behavior is very important. Maybe to focus in this context more on the behavior, to give the people tips. Don't go too long in the sun. Don't take more light food, drink more water, and so on. I think for the spectators and for the people there, this will be more relevant than applying scales and saying 1 week do that and do that. Maybe in this context to proceed. Yeah. Thank you very much for. Yeah.
Yeah. Boji, do you still have comments? You want to continue your question?
Another question is about the currently many countries, especially in Europe, Australia, and America, is starting to develop the extreme heat plan. But there are many countries like US and Australia are the migration countries. That actually in the citizens, there's a mix of the different groups of people, like from the Europe, from the Asia. They have the different, maybe the human, maybe the different features. So what's your suggestion on the local government of such migration countries when setting their extreme plans, heat plans to reduce the heat vulnerability of cities? Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We have in the heat health action plans, we have these 8 success factors. And each of these factors is very, very important. If you asked me, if you put the question 3 years ago, I will tell you very important is the development and the application of the heat health warning system, an appropriate heat health warning system. 2 years ago, if you ask me, I will tell you we need all these long-term actions like having more blue, more green, more trees in urban areas and so on. If you ask me now, we have developed the heat health action plans. We didn't develop, we developed the guidelines how to run a heat health action plan. At the moment, I will tell you it's more important education. It's more important to educate people from medicine, people from pharmacies, the neighbors. One important point during heat is the medication of the people. My mother, maybe also your grandmother, they take the pills, and in order to see the pills, they expose them in the sun. This modifies the effect of the pills and so on. And this is a very difficult question. This depends also from region to region, depends on the experience of the people and many, many other things. Another point is, of course, the coordination of all the system. Who is responsible about heat action plans? And this is something which is not included in the heat action plans. This is different. In Australia, you have bigger areas where the area, let me say, the local government can take actions. In Germany, it's mostly the administration level is the county. Another administration level that we have is the city. Therefore, the implementation of the plans is very important, and this differs from region to region. Of course, if you take as example Hong Kong or Singapore, it's one city. The city government decides about that. But if you have several cities and different cities and so on, you have to look. I think it's more on the local level. It's not on the, maybe local and regional level, but not on the worldwide level. And if you take United States from north to south, there are about 2,000, 3,000 kilometers. So you have to decide in reality what we need, and justification and a real adaptation on that.
Yeah.
Thank you
very much.
Thank you very much. Professor Mazarakis, I have a question actually. So we already face the vulnerable environments. I think this is very important to us instead of adaptations. So what do you think? What should urban designers do instead of adaptation? Adaptation is just we follow the environments, but we have to change how the urban designers or architects doing their designs. So what do you think about it?
I think it's a long way to go. And this concept has really implemented in the curricula of architects, the curricula of designers, and so on. This is the one point. The other point is to start to teach about urban climate, to teach about general climate and climate change really in the school. That's the one point. For the architects, can recommend, or for the designers, I can recommend only focus on popular things, take the results that still existing, and of course, you cannot take an example from Germany and apply directly in Indonesia. It has to be modified. It has to be adapted or just justified for the climate there. But I think most important is education. And we need also popular examples, and we need solutions which are not expensive. And from the side of universities, from professors teaching, we have to provide to the people that we are teaching easy, understandable examples. Like the example I show, if you cut one tree, remove the one tree, you increase the sun radiation, you increase the heat so much. I think we need very popular and easy, understandable examples, and let me say, not expensive solutions. That is my recommendation to architects. And we need, in addition, also a platform of communication. In this communication platform, let me say communication desk or something like that, can be a virtual desk. What we have at the moment is that we have to consider not only the experts, but also the ordinary people, as we see in examples outside that we have here. And we have to take the extreme situation like heat or flash flood and some or similar things in order to make the people understand something is happening here. We can act something, but the things that we are doing are something valuable. I think this is very, very important. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Professor Mazarakis. Maybe, Bogie, you still have questions or discussions for Professor Mazarakis? You still mute mode.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, as mentioned by the Professor Andres, it's like education is the core part in the short term for us. Yeah, and my question is about how we try to improve the people's awareness, especially through the education, is for our young people, maybe easily to get a tech from the techniques and from the smartphone and the TV to get such an information. But for the elder people, they may have the different, living habits from the young generation. And so what's your suggestion on to improve the education of the elder people?
The question I answered also last Friday in a discussion with the government. And this is exactly what I showed before, is the one transparency with the communication parts that we have. For younger people, we need other techniques, other platforms. And for elderly people, we need, let me say, more traditional ways. I have been 2 years ago, that was exactly 2 years ago, on a meeting about heat in Hong Kong. And in the backyard, I find a very small flyer about mosquitoes. That means we need information which is very low. We need something. Oh, I have it here. We need something like that. Easy, understandable brochures. Okay. The brochure, the quality here has to be called Climate Change and Health Tips on Coping with Hot Weather and Heat Waves. This is the one way. The other way is we have to explain to the elderly people. But we have, as mentioned before, when we go in elderly homes, in nursing home, we have to talk about education to people, how to behave. I think we have to cover all the spectrum of communication. Depending on the target group that we have, we need different way of communication and different possibilities of communication.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Mazarakis. Maybe this is for the last questions because of the limited times. So the last question, maybe it's not a question, this is a comment. all of the software that you mentioned in your presentation are free or not. So can we download it for free?
Yes.
Thank you very much. Okay, Professor Mazarakis, this is times maybe 5 minutes before 14 in here. I think this is the last sessions, the last session of this 2-day seminars. Ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the ends of presentations. We would like to say thanks again for Professor Mazarakis and Associate Professor Bojihe. Thank you very much for their informative and interesting discussions, talk, and some insight knowledge, and to audience for your active participation. And hopefully the presentations will be beneficial for everybody. And before we close the plenary session and the sessions, we will have photo sessions. It will be conducted by committee. Please, committee, time is yours for the photo sessions. Thank you, committee, the host or master of ceremony. Can you conduct the photo sessions? And I have to conduct the photo sessions. So for the audience, would you please to open your camera, and we will have photo sessions in these sessions. Okay, for the committee, would you please to print screens or take a photo of these sessions? 1, 2, 3, for page 1. I think the committee already taken this page. Okay. For the next page, 1, 2, 3. Actually, there is a 9 page. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Third page. 1, 2, 3. Okay. Fourth page. 1, 2, 3. Okay. 5. 1, 2, 3. 6. 1, 2, 3. 7. 1, 2, 3. 8. 1, 2, 3, and the last page, 1, 2, 3. Thank you very much for all of the audience, and thank you for your attention. Thank you very much, Professor Mazarakis.
Thank you very much.
Bojihe, thank you very much for the discussions. I will give the time for the Master of Ceremony. Thank you.
Andreas, all right, thank you so much, Professor Mazarakis, for the thought-provoking talk. And thank you, Associate Professor Po Jihe and Associate Professor Doni Kurniawan for taking us through Keynote Session 2.
The parallel session is going to start soon. We would like to remind all presenters to change your Zoom name into your room number _ your senpai ID _ name. Example 01 _ SBD 01 _ Faiz Fairuza. And for participants, please change your Zoom account's name into your room number _ name. For example, 01 _ Faiz Fairuza. Once again, we would like to remind all presenters to change your Zoom name into your room number _ your senpai ID _ name. For example, 01 _ SBD 01 _ Faiz Fairuza. And for participants, please change your Zoom account's name into your room number _ name. For example, 01 _ Faiz Fairuza. To all participants, Please wait until you are assigned by the host to the respective rooms. Thank you.